Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. We are back on another Friday, and I'm joined by Henry Hill and Michael McCubbin. Henry, how are you?
Very well, thank you. I just wanted to say thanks to everyone in the comments last week who said that I looked like a Sean Dyche impersonist, because that is by far and large the most masculine association I've ever received in my life. I think Sean Dyche would be embarrassed to have my face next to his. But yeah, it's going more per Mertesacker again, as you know, the old favourite. But yeah, for a brief week, I did feel like maybe like I could be striding up the dugout of Turf Moor.
Fair. I mean, I only ever get Wesley Sneijder these days, and McCubs, you're constantly Griezmann. Do you get anyone else?
Wesley Griezmann? Not so much. Oh, someone did say something weird the other day. A really weird one. Oh yeah, who's the old Spider-Man? Andrew Garfield. Someone said that if I shaved my beard, I'd look like Andrew Garfield, which I've never had before.
That's quite a compliment.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, so, but yeah, otherwise Griezmann. Although the Griezmann chat's kind of died down a bit recently. And I'm actually getting a little bit, not sick of having long hair, but like it is getting a bit out of control this week. Like I had to actually do quite a lot of shaping to it for it to even look even mildly presentable for this show. So yeah, I'm quite keen for the barbers to reopen at some point.
Well shaped.
Well, yes. Yeah, I mean, even then it is still pretty messy, but when it's not like this, it genuinely does look like a bird's nest.
Well, speaking of Messi, he is definitely going to come up in this show because we are talking potential free transfers this summer, because Candycash08 said which free transfers will be available this summer. Now, obviously, we've talked about Messi for the last 9 months. We're not going to focus on him. Obviously, we'll talk about him a bit later. But obviously, with European clubs being a bit cash-strapped and in light of the pandemic, no revenue coming in for the last close to a year now, you know, free transfers are going to be vitally important this summer. And McCubs, we're going to kick off with a guy in Italy whose contract is set to expire, but we're not quite sure whether he actually will leave.
Yeah, I think it works both ways as well, doesn't it? I think clubs being, cash strapped also means that they're in a tougher position negotiation-wise with players who are still demanding quite big wages on new contracts and whatnot. So I think that's probably why we're seeing so many high-profile players who are currently, available this summer. Gianluigi Donnarumma was a player who's been, speculated on a lot in the last few months. I think Chelsea are probably the most high-profile club to be kind of continuously linked with him. PSG as well. I guess we'll get onto that in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this week Paolo Maldini, the AC Milan sporting director, confirmed that Milan were in talks with Zlatan Ibrahimovic over extending his contract, which expires on the 30th of June. I believe that will be the third contract that he'll have received in a year and a half. Because obviously his original one was only 6 months and they extended it, and now I expect they'll be able to extend it again. Obviously negotiating with Mino Raiola, his agent, and they'll be negotiating with him again over Donnarumma. Calhanoglu is another key player who's also out of contract in the summer. But yeah, I think Donnarumma out of the three of those is really the key. Obviously Zlatan has had a real galvanising effect on the AC Milan squad since arriving last January, and has been one of the star men in not only Serie A but in European football this season. Calhanoglu has come on a lot since last season as well, hasn't he? But I think Donnarumma, considering his age profile, considering his ties to Milan, considering just how good a goalkeeper he is probably their most valuable asset. So to let him go for free this summer would be financially and in terms of everything would be an absolute disaster for Milan. And we've been here before with Donnarumma, haven't we? Obviously back in 2017, the two parties were at loggerheads over a new deal. The Milan directors at the time, Mirabelli and Fasoni, released a statement saying that he wouldn't extend. And then, he just kind of experienced the wrath of the fans, didn't he? Was kind of sprayed with fake dollar bills in Italy under-21 game, was kind of nicknamed Dollarumma, which is quite a lot for a teenager to take on, even if he was being quite demanding. And obviously his agent is obviously Mino Raiola as well, who's kind of the best in the game for getting the best possible deals for his players. Eventually, they found an agreement. They agreed a contract worth €6 million a season. Now, Raiola wants €10 million a season, a deal which would put him in the same bracket as the likes of De Gea, Neuer, Oblak at their respective clubs. And in terms of player as talented and now as experienced as Donnarumma, I mean, that is kind of his price. That's the kind of price that he'll be getting if he were to transfer to someone like Chelsea or PSG. And AC Milan are not, financially as big as those clubs, but that is what they're contending with now. I think Milan probably will have to offer him something close to that for him to stay. It's a difficult one. I think they will come to an agreement, but nevertheless, it's going to be a tough one. And as we've seen in the last year, nothing's certain in this transfer market. And to just give a little bit of further context as to why I think Donnarumma is definitely worth whatever he's demanding, essentially. I mean, he's racked up 230 appearances for Milan and 22 caps for Italy. He's still only 21. For context, Manuel Neuer had only made 77 appearances for Schalke by that age. It really is quite something for a goalkeeper so young to be so experienced and to be performing at such a high level for however long he has been now, 3-4 years. This year he ranks first in Serie A for expected goals saved, ahead of Pepe Reina, has a save percentage of 75%. I believe his save percentage has never dropped below 72% since he's come through, which is pretty astounding as well. Obviously, I think that's, you've got to commend a little bit the AC Milan defence, which has been pretty solid for at least the last kind of 2-3 years as well. But that definitely contributes to that as well. But yeah, he's an incredibly consistent performer. As for where he'd go, I think, like I was saying, Chelsea, PSG seem the most likely destinations, don't they? I think in particular Chelsea are kind of looking for an elite stopper, aren't they, in the long term? I don't think Edouard Mendy is that. I think when he signed for them back in September, October, I think we were all pretty kind of the thinking that he's a decent keeper and that's all they needed at the time, because Kepa was such a disaster in goal. And yeah, it's kind of proved that much as well. Mendy had a very strong start, but since then it's kind of averaged out, and he now ranks 14th, I think, among keepers for expected goals saved. So not amazing, not terrible, but yeah, I think Chelsea will definitely be pushing for this Donnarumma move as long as his future at Milan stays uncertain. But there's definitely reasons for him to stay aside from a paycheck, isn't there? This is his boyhood club. They're pushing hard for a Serie A title this term. Things are generally looking pretty good at the San Siro at the moment. So there's plenty of there's more reason, if anything, for him to stay this time round. But he is more in demand. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm backing AC Milan to make it happen. But yeah, if he does leave, I think Chelsea's probably his most likely destination.
Yeah, I hope he does stay too. And at 21, he could probably do another 2, 3, 4, 5 years at Milan and still get a move to a Champions League competing club,
sure,
if Milan aren't there at that stage. But yeah, it's definitely much more of a romantic option to stay at Milan, particularly with their success at the moment. The fact they're going for that first league title in about 10 years, and after bouncing back from defeats to Atalanta and Juve, they've actually looked pretty solid in the last few weeks, and Donnarumma's been a massive part of that, saving some unbelievable efforts on goal, and has really picked up his form and puts himself right in the sort of top bracket of keepers in the world. So fair play to Donnarumma. I hope he stays at AC Milan personally. But Henry, let's move over to Spain, because Real Madrid's captain Sergio Ramos is out of contract this summer, and for the first time it feels like he could actually leave.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like this really could go down to the wire, this contract saga. It's really, we'll go into some more of the details in a minute, but we've kind of been here all before with Ramos. Will he go, will he stay? But like you said, this time, I think due to a number of factors, he may ultimately have to leave. But just to give you an idea of how important he continues to be for this Real Madrid side, he's 34 years old, like you said, the captain. This year, he's missed 23 games with 9 separate injuries. limiting him to just 17 appearances in the league and the Champions League. And let's face it, Real Madrid have really suffered in his absence. Without him, they've dropped points in 8 of their 22 games. And they're 5 points off Atletico Madrid, who have 2 games in hand on them. I think there's lots of rumours that this is probably going to be Zidane's last contract, which expires in 2022. They'll probably go in a new direction after that, certainly after what's kind of gone about this season. But, I mean, Real have only lost 2 of the 18 games in which Sergio Ramos has featured in all competitions, compared to 5 of the 11 games where they've missed him. So you can see they've really missed that kind of linchpin at the back. And he's had to have knee surgery earlier this week as well, and it's revealed he'll miss up to 7 weeks of the campaign, taking us into April. Now, this is quite important when it comes to looking at his contract situation, because it's kind of been agreed that they're not going to open talks again once that situation is concluded and he's back on the playing field. To give you an idea, Ramos wants to stay at Real Madrid on an improved deal, but they're only willing to offer him a 2-year deal on the same terms he's on now, which is about £10.8 million per season. But he knows that having accepted a 10% pay cut already, he'll effectively be earning less if he agrees to their offer, which fair enough, he thinks is unfair after his magnificent performances, I think, for the club in general, but also last season where he scored 13 goals in 43 games. We're talking about the most capped European player at international level. Ramos he's just that. The idea of him not in a Real Madrid shirt almost feels ridiculous now. Obviously, he was at Sevilla before, but just seems kind of nuts. But yeah, Real Madrid really are struggling financially. There's no secret about that. But I think other factors which are maybe playing into this, apparently, they're looking at trying to sign David Alaba this summer. That's one of the names that pops up later. Apparently, he's asking for about £400,000 per week. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Real Madrid players are a bit irked by these kind of stories. And also, Rafa Varane, his contract expires in 2022. There's talks that if he doesn't agree to a new deal, they're going to try and shift him as well. So there's going to be a lot of kind of movement going on at Real Madrid in their defence, whatever seems to happen, and a bit of nervous actions behind the scenes. In terms of Ramos, the front runners for his signings, PSG, once again in contention, and Manchester United, which, according to Market, is his preferred destination. Like we said, we've kind of been here all before. He's been linked with Man United. He's been pushing for a new contract. Real Madrid have often backed down and given it to him. I'm not sure that's necessarily going to happen this time. I think maybe he's getting to the point, certainly with kind of the shortcomings of Real Madrid this season, that maybe he does fancy a new challenge. And let's face it, he'd be an incredible signing for wherever he goes. 2.5 tackles and interceptions with a 79% completion rate, 1.3 shots, 65% aerial duel wins, 92% passing accuracy. I mean, he really still does have it all, doesn't he, at 34? And if you think about it, for context, Harry Maguire, 2.5 tackles and interceptions, 70% completion rates. It's all slightly less than what Ramos has been putting out. And if we look at how successful Thiago Silva has been coming to the Premier League, even as a veteran, he's obviously slotted into that Chelsea defence and made it his own. There's no reason why Ramos, who'll be a bit younger and him coming in, couldn't do the same. He's never ever really shown any signs of aging or slowing down, I think. Obviously he's suffering a few more injuries and niggles this year, but he still would be an incredible leader. I mean, he's a born winner, Sergio Ramos. Loves aggravating opposition defenders and fans and stuff like that. So I'd personally love to see him in the Premier League. Fabrizio Romano says United haven't contacted his agent as of Wednesday, but that could all change, like we said. This cooling down period while he recovers from injury. After that, a lot could happen. Considering everything that we've covered about Real Madrid, their finances, the difficulties, I think they'd be ridiculous not to give Ramos something close to what he wants. I think he deserves that for everything he's done for the club. Well, I think, 4 Champions League victories and etc. But they may have little choice but to let him go. And I certainly think the longer the situation drags on, the longer they kind of mess him around, he probably will think, sod it, let's go try something new. So yeah, I'm really 50. I don't know about you two boys, but I'm really 50-50 on this one.
Yeah, I mean, McCubs, we might as well go to you on this. I mean, do you want this to happen? Do you want him at Man United?
I mean, it would be fun, wouldn't it? It would be fun. I don't know whether it would be the wisest thing for United to do. I feel like a few years ago this would have been something that United would have been willing to. Well, it was something that United were willing to spend a lot of money to make happen. Now I feel like United are less keen on taking kind of veterans on. Obviously they did so with Cavani, but on a loan deal. So I feel like that would be the kind of thing that they want. Obviously, if Ramos is out of contract, I guess that that gets rid of a fee. So yeah, I kind of forgot about that when I was reading it in my head. Then, yeah, I think United, it's something United would potentially do in that case. I'm trying to think where he'd kind of be positioned in the wage structure, but it's definitely something United could do. But yeah, like I said, I feel like that wouldn't necessarily that would potentially take away from signing a younger, kind of more long-term option at the back, which is the only thing I'd be worried about. But yeah, in the short term, he would be a great pickup for United. But yeah, I agree, Henry. I'm quite 50-50 on this. I was quite confident that he'd stay, but like I feel like this time round, you know, his brother, who's, you know, also acts as an agent, has been you know, talking a lot in the media. There's been a Spanish journalist who claims that Real Madrid have accepted that he's leaving. I'm not really I'm not sold on that at all, but yeah, this has certainly dragged on a lot longer than previous sagas. So yeah, it could be a wild one.
Do you not think, though, if you consider some of the centre-back options, which are kind of the names you see being linked, Upamecano, it looks like he'll probably go to either a Chelsea or a Bayern Munich, let's say. And then I guess the other two names that spring to mind are Konate, also at Leipzig, and then Jules Koundé over at Sevilla. Both of these guys are being touted around the 50-60 million pound mark, which a lot of clubs, it's not really a gamble worth taking. So obviously he is older, but he'll probably have some kind of signing on fee and whatnot. But it's like a short-term investment to plug the gap until kind of prices restore themselves and finances in football stabilise. Surely it actually is a sensible time to go for someone like Ramos, who is a proven winner, like I said.
Potentially, like, I mean, I think that's the thing with signing centre-backs, it's always a risk, and especially younger centre-backs as well, who haven't played in, say, the Premier League before, or like, I feel like if you're signing a young centre-back from a different league, whatever league you're in, there's always a slight risk factor. Because they're really difficult to judge at a young age. So yeah, I agree in that sense. Like Sergio Ramos, you know what you're going to get with him. You know, Chelsea, you know, like you were saying with Thiago Silva, have benefited from getting in a veteran who is, you know, whose experience just shows, doesn't it, in that back line. So so yeah, in that sense, yeah, for sure. But it's just like, I think with United, you just always worry that they're gonna like give him like some like 4-year contract with crazy wages on it, and then they'll struggle to get him off it when he's like, you know, just not able to play because he's constantly injured in 2 seasons' time, and he's just earning, you know, like £250,000 a week, and is making 5 appearances a season. That's the worry, isn't it? But yeah, as a short-term fix to the defence, and the United defence definitely does need a fix of some sort at the moment. Yeah, I would not be against it.
There we have it. There's your headline. McCubs says yes, under certain conditions. Sergio Ramos is going to Man United. Anyway, let's go to another Manchester club in Manchester City who are potentially losing the totemic figure of Sergio Aguero this summer, who is out of contract. Now, for me, Sergio Aguero obviously wasn't the cheapest signing at £35 million, but actually has to go down as one of the greatest in Premier League history for me. Signing from Atletico in July 2011, he's now racked up 256 goals for the club, which is 79 more than Eric Brook, their previous top goal scorer. And from the moment he hit the Premier League with that, I think it was 2 goals against Swansea on his debut, he just instantly looked at home. Like, he's not got the best build-up play. He's apparently an awful trainer, according to Frank Lampard. I remember him saying that when he went to Man City. But in terms of, if you had to have someone to finish a chance to save your life in the Premier League over the last 10 years, I'd go Aguero every single time. And he's now racked up 180 Premier League goals. He's the all-time top goal scorer in the Premier League for foreign players. Only Alan Shearer, Wayne Rooney and Andy Cole have scored more. And I think Andy Cole's actually only about 8 ahead of him. So he could still catch Andy Cole. But he's never been particularly lucky with injury during that time. But it's got so much worse recently. 31 games missed since the start of 2019-20, and has only been able to feature in 9 of City's 34 games this season, scoring just twice. And for a player who's guaranteed at least 23 goals in all of his last 9 seasons bar one, hitting the 30 goal mark 5 times in that time. He's been a massive loss to Man City, and it's credit to Pep Guardiola that he's managed to sort of survive this period, particularly with Gabi Jesus not having his best season, and having to utilise either Phil Foden, Raheem Sterling, Ferran Torres, or Kevin De Bruyne on occasions as a false nine. And City have now won the most games in English history in all competitions in a row. So credit to Pep Guardiola. I think this will be one of his greatest ever achievements if he manages to win the Premier League this season. But we know this summer that change is going to happen at Man City. They're looking at Haaland. They want Haaland. They want supposedly Lukaku or maybe even Danny Ings as backup, supposedly, according to The Athletic, I think. And according to David Ornstein, if Aguero is to stay and extend his contract, he's going to have to half his £260,000 per week wages, which he might not be willing to do at his age and stage, knowing that he could get a massive contract in Qatar, in China, or somewhere like that, or potentially in America as well with Inter Miami. So there is, I just don't think it's very likely that Aguero will stay this summer, and perhaps it is time for him to move on. But what a loss it would be for the club, and at this stage of his career, it's a real shame that he won't go out on a bang. It will look like it's going to be an injury-riddled season, and it just won't be the sort of send-off that he deserves as a Man City legend. But there's interest from Maurizio Pochettino at PSG, and there's talk of a move to Barcelona, which is absolutely fascinating. I suppose it depends on Messi's future. Barcelona, there was one of their presidential candidates was saying that they hope to use Aguero, the promise of bringing in Aguero to make Messi stay. They're obviously brothers-in-law, and they go back a long way, Messi and Aguero. But in a wage way, it doesn't make sense to bring in Aguero and keep Messi, and they're just not really going to be able to keep Messi, I don't think, because he's not really invested in the sporting project. So I can't really see Aguero to Barcelona, but Aguero to PSG might work. I mean, they're potentially going to lose Moise Kean this summer, who's only been on loan for Everton, although I'm sure he's keen to stay in PSG. Another goal last night in the French Cup. He's been magnificent for them, really, when he's played. So it is difficult to see what happens with Aguero, and people are forgetting, just because of how he's performed this season when he's been playing, which has not been very often, and he's also had this COVID debacle continuing. But last season, he was absolutely magnificent. 16 goals and 3 assists in 24 league games last term. Nearly 5 shots a game, over 1 key pass, 1.5 dribbles, and 1.14 expected goals and assists per 90, which I think was the best record in the Premier League. So when he's fit and firing, he's still one of the world's best strikers, and Aguero would be a magnificent pickup for anyone. Personally, I think PSG is slightly more likely than Barcelona. I can't see him going to Barcelona if Messi's going to leave. And maybe it wouldn't be the wisest move from Barcelona as well to get themselves saddled with another injury-prone, not over the hill, but deep into his 30s player. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens with Aguero. But Haaland, the prospect of Haaland going to Man City is absolutely terrifying, to be honest. But guys, there are plenty of other players out of contract. It's literally like some of the world's best players are out of contract this summer. We've got Messi, obviously. We've got Memphis Depay, Gini Wijnaldum, David Alaba, who we've already talked about. But Angel Di Maria, Fernandinho, Julian Draxler. McCubs, if you of these players, where do you see them? Where do you see them going? Do you want Man United to pick up any of them? What do you see happening?
Yeah, I mean, Memphis Depay, I think, is the pick of the bunch there, isn't it? In terms of his age, in terms of he's kind of at his peak right now, or entering his peak years. So I think Memphis Depay is the pick of the bunch there. I expect he probably will go to Barcelona. I feel like they'll make that happen somehow. So I think that one's fairly set. And the other ones, I think, David Alaba's probably the next pick. Obviously, Messi's, everyone will want Messi, but I think if he does leave Barcelona, it's just going to be Man City, isn't it? Yeah, David Alaba, I'd say, is the next one on that list. But again, like £400,000 a week is a big ask in these times. That's a huge wage. But like he would definitely be my pick for any defence. I'd take him over Sergio Ramos for sure. But especially as he's left-footed. And then the other ones, I forgot about Fernandinho actually.
It's another big loss from the dressing room as well.
Yeah, massive.
Is that confirmed that he's going to leave?
I feel like they'll try and get him to stay.
I think they'll try and keep him. But he is 35 or 36.
Yeah,
now, so.
And it's been it wasn't even last season. I think it wasn't certain that he was going to stay beyond this season, was it? So and obviously they're all pretty good options. But I'd say Memphis and Alaba are definitely the two picks.
Henry, can you see Julian Draxler, rocking up at Craven Cottage?
I mean, I was going to say, it's lucky that he's even on that list. He kind of shouldn't be there. He'd do very well to go to anywhere like Leeds. I'm really not sure what he's got to offer. I was just having a quick look, because obviously a lot of these players we've mentioned are going to demand high wages, and for a lot of people out there who support maybe lower down clubs, these aren't necessarily all achievable players. So there are some other interesting options. Alexander Dragovic, Bayer Leverkusen, really good passing centre-back. Maximovic, I think from Napoli, he's being linked with Tottenham. And then the only, striker-wise, Mainz is Robin Quaison, the Swedish guy. He's had a bit of a stinker this year, just 2 goals, but he got 13 last season.
He's pretty useful.
He is pretty useful. Can play on the wing as well. I wouldn't be surprised if you see like a Burnley or a West Ham, one of these kind of middling teams, if they probably will go in for him, because his contract's expiring. There's no guarantee he will sign on. So there are some other interesting kind of lower down names maybe to pick up. But yeah, out of this bunch, I think, like you say, Depay is the best, and I think Di Maria would be a useful asset wherever he went.
Yeah, I think Gini Wijnaldum would be a massive loss to Liverpool as well. I think he's been probably Liverpool's most consistent midfielder this year, and will be a massive loss in that dressing room as well. He's in that leadership group alongside Van Dijk, Henderson and Milner. So Wijnaldum will be sorely missed, especially with Milner ageing out as well. But guys, where do you guys see these free transfers going, and particularly focus on Aguero, Sergio Ramos and Donnarumma? Are they going to leave? Will they? Won't they? Let us know in the comments down below. And let's move on to our big match preview. For our big match preview this week, we could have talked about Real Madrid versus Valencia, Dortmund versus Hoffenheim, or PSG versus Nice, but having talked about Le Classique and Barcelona versus Athletic Bilbao in recent weeks, we wanted to go back to Serie A, where Napoli take on Juventus this Saturday at 5 p.m. It's 6th versus 3rd, but they are only separated by 5 points as it stands. Henry, let's kick off with Napoli, because bit of a weird campaign, to say the least.
Well, I actually think it's been a bit of a weird campaign for a lot of the teams trying to get into that 3rd and 4th position in Serie A. Yeah. But I mean, for Napoli, they won 9 of their first 11 games. This kind of typifies it. They won 9 of their first 11 games to sit 3rd by the 13th of December. And that included wins against Atalanta and Roma. And they were just behind AC Milan, who obviously went on that really long unbeaten stretch. But since then, played 10, won 4, drawed 1 and lost 5, scoring 14 and conceding 13. And 6 of their goals came in a 6-0 win against Fiorentina, so even that slightly distorts what's going on. And they're now 6th in the table, 3 points off Roma and 12 points behind leaders AC Milan, although they do have a game in hand on them both. But as I kind of said, it's a bit bizarre what's been going on. You've seen Atalanta, they've drawn 3 and lost 1 of their last 6 games. Similar for Roma, they've been kind of picking up losses here and there. So no one's ever been quite able to stamp their authority on those 3rd and 4th slots in the league at the moment. But now this is turning into a really challenging few months for Gattuso. It was revealed in December that he's been suffering from an eye condition called ocular mesanthia, which is a condition which weakens the eyelids on the eyelids, and he's had it for about 10 years, and he's been wearing an eye patch in some games this season. You may have noticed that if you've been watching the highlights or so. It's not life-threatening or anything like that, but it has flared up for the 3rd time in 10 years, often from overusing the eyes. That's a bit unlucky on Gattuso. And to make matters worse, it looks like his job is under pressure. Football Italia claim Napoli's next 2 fixtures against Juventus and Atalanta will be decisive for him, especially after a 3-1 defeat in the Coppa Italia semi-finals to Atalanta last night. Although I will say some of the finishing from Atalanta was unbelievable. I think all 3 of their goals.
Yeah, it was electric.
Gattuso, I give him a kind of little get out there, because the build up to their goals was just excellent. So yeah, really exciting for Atalanta. Looking forward to that final already. But anyway, Gazzetta dello Sport claim he will almost certainly leave at the end of the year. But the fiery president Aurelio De Laurentiis is prepared to make a change mid-season. That's because you've got Rafa Benitez knocking around, Walter Mazzarri on an interim basis. He could arrive. And then also he wants to target, apparently, Roberto De Zerbi, perhaps at the end of the season. And then there's Hellas Verona's Ivan Juric, or Spezia's Vincenzo Italiano. What a lovely name. So there are options out there, and De Laurentiis does like a change. One other thing that apparently he's really annoyed about is he's, like we mentioned, Maximovic being available. Well, anyway, Gattuso's been using Maksimovic and Hysaj, whose contracts expire at the end of the summer. And he's been using them over €13 million signing Amir Rahmani, who is available at centre-back or left-back. He did play last night, but he's annoyed to see Rahmani being used not being used, in fact, behind these guys who aren't necessarily showing the loyalty that he's after. Gattuso has been unlucky. Star signing Victor Osimhen has missed 20 games with a shoulder injury and COVID this term, so he hasn't scored maybe the kind of goals they're expecting, but he should come good. And he now has Dries Mertens and Manolas out with ankle injuries too. Insigne and Lozano are firing. They're both on 9 goals in Serie A this season, which is like a positive for them. Great to see Lozano back to kind of what we were expecting perhaps when he joined. And, only Milan and Inter have scored more than their 44 league goals, and only Juventus have conceded fewer than their 21. So they're kind of there and thereabout. They're taking 18.1 shots per game, which is the best record in Europe. That is very entertaining, and scoring 4 more goals in 6 of their games this season. So it might not be completely pretty, but happily they are there and thereabout, and they are proving quite a fun watch, I guess, on the off game.
Yeah, I think this would be pretty harsh if Gattuso gets fired, to be totally honest. I feel like he's completely changed his reputation in Napoli. He's got a lot out of his forwards, and he's just been quite unlucky this season. I feel like they maybe don't have the defensive depth to cover when your Manolas are out or your Koulibalys are out, and it's just come back to bite them. But as you say, last night, we filmed this on a Thursday, Atalanta were just magnificent. Zapata scored a worldie and created another excellent goal as well, and Pessina stuck away the third. So fair play to Atalanta, but I feel Gattuso will definitely get another job on the back of this, given that, with his ensuring that his health is good enough is what I'm trying to say. But we shall see. And best of luck to Atalanta in the Coppa Italia final against Juventus, who are our, second part of this big match preview, McCubs, who are sort of coasting at the moment.
Yeah, they're doing well, aren't they? Obviously, they're big question marks over Andrea Pirlo at the start of the season. I feel like his squad is a lot more settled now. There are still obviously going to be question marks over him and his credentials in the long term, but yeah, they're still very much in the title race, aren't they? And I feel like what's changed is that at the start of the season, they were quite inconsistent, weren't they? The team was changing around quite a lot, and results kind of reflected that. But their standing hasn't actually changed that much. They were 7 points off AC Milan after 12 games. And that was the 12 games in which they failed to win 6. And they're now still 7 points off them with a game in hand after winning 5 of their last 7 Serie A games. Obviously, that did include quite comprehensive losses to Fiorentina and Inter Milan. But in the other games, they've looked pretty quality. And I guess, what you'd expect to see from, what is probably the first or second strongest squad in the division. But yeah, their performances have picked up. They won 6 of their last 7. They won 6 of their 7 league games in 2021. They've beaten Genoa, Spal, and Inter over 2 legs to reach the Coppa Italia final, like we were saying. And they beat Napoli 2-0 in the Super Cup. So they've definitely got a rhythm about them. Ronaldo's obviously scoring very consistently, isn't he? We've seen Chiesa and Kulusevski really grow into that team as well. And the defence has improved a lot since those opening weeks. So yeah, their record in 2021 is played 12, won 10, drawn 1, lost 1. They've scored 27 and they've conceded 8. So yeah, the kind of numbers that we'd expect to see from a Juve team, even one which isn't necessarily at its best. And one of the main reasons for their defence getting so much better is, I think, the return of Chiellini, isn't it? He was only fit to play 4 games in all competitions in the first half of the season. He's now featured in 9 games since the turn of the year. They've kept clean sheets in 6 of them. That is a concern in the long term, that they're still relying on a 36-year-old Chiellini when they have, the talents like Demiral and De Ligt at their disposal. But I think that's something that they can, hopefully work out. But for now, he's still a godsend to them. Ronaldo has picked up form, like I was saying, and Morata continues to prove the doubters wrong, doesn't he? 4 goals and 7 assists this season. He's really taken to that kind of second striker role, hasn't he? And yeah, he's been excellent. His shots have dropped from 3 to 2.2 per game, but his key passes have gone from 1.1 to 1.8. His expected assists per 90 at 0.37, which I believe is the best of his career and also the best in this Juve squad. So he's really essential actually to how that attack operates, and I think Ronaldo for one will be really glad to have had him as his kind of foil this season. For context, actually, in terms of back to the expected assists, De Bruyne, Grealish and Bruno Fernandes are the only players to have topped that in the Premier League. So it really goes to show how much Morata's creative game has come on this season. It's great to see him adapt to a new role. And maybe this is what we'll see for the rest of his career, considering that he did have a lot of trouble in front of goal, didn't he, at Chelsea and Atletico Madrid. So things looking up for Morata, things looking up for Juve in general, I think. I think at the start of the season, if you'd asked Juve fans, especially considering the nature of the appointment, the nature of their summer, which is pretty chaotic, and the improvement of Inter and also AC, that they'd be 7/5 points off the top spot with 15 games to go. I think they definitely take that, considering how we generally see Juve really come into form towards the end of the season. And as for this game, I think I kind of see Juve taking it, just because Napoli are a little bit all over the place at the moment. I think I can kind of see Juve just quite comfortably beating them.
It'll be absolutely fascinating to see what goes down in this. I mean, it's been really interesting to see. I mean, when Pirlo was appointed, everyone sort of pored over his thesis, which was the only thing we really had to base anything on in terms of what we thought his style of play was going to be like. And it was all about high line, controlling the space, very intense, high intensity pressing. And actually, in the last sort of month or so, you've seen Chiellini and Bonucci come back into the side, and he's gone much more defensive and gone for a counter-attacking system, which seems to work with the players he's got. He's got very quick midfielders, he's got quick wingers, and he's got a player up front who only needs 2 chances to score 2 goals. So it's kind of worked for him, but going away from your principles to keep your job, probably not the worst idea. And if Pirlo finishes in title contention, I hope he keeps his job personally, because you never really like to see a complete novice being fired after 1 year, especially if they've managed to finish third in a massive season of upheaval after 3 managerial changes in 3 years. So hopefully Pirlo keeps his job, but I'm with you, McCubs. I can only really see a Juventus win in this one. I'm going to go with 1-0, despite the fact it's in the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium. Henry, what's your score prediction?
Yeah, 2-0 Juventus. I agree with you, by the way. I think the amount of over-flooded midfield options he has and the way that he sort of had to mash all that together, often playing like McKennie on the wing, I feel a little bit sorry for Pirlo in that regard. I think he needs another season to stamp his authority, perhaps in a transfer window. But 2-0 to Juventus for me.
Fair. There we go. We're all in agreement, a Juventus win. Hopefully that means a shock tomorrow for Napoli fans. But let us know your score predictions in the comments down below, and let's move on to our quickfire question. Our quickfire question this week comes in from Joe_D_Shepherd. What a legend, sends them in every week. Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who send them in this week. But we've picked out Joe because it's coming back next week, the Champions League, and he has asked, who are your favourites for the UCL? Henry, what's your prediction?
Ooh, I'd love to see Atalanta do it again. Go deep into the competition. I actually do think they'll beat Real Madrid over 2 legs. I really do. But other than that, I think this could be Atletico Madrid's year. I just think the way that football is, it's all a bit crazy right now. Although Chelsea do look really good under Thomas Tuchel, so that's going to be, that for me is the most intriguing clash. But I like, if Atletico can get through this Chelsea tie, then I really think this could be their turn to kind of go all the way. But I mean, what do I know? It's I like how this is kind of turning into a preview of the Euros, and that they're all playing in random cities across the world now. It's all kind of gone a bit nuts, this competition. But yeah, Atletico and Atalanta, why not?
Fair enough. That's very bold. I wasn't expecting that. McCubs, are you in agreement? Is it going to be a shock this year?
No, I think. I definitely see the logic with Atletico, and I'm actually going to use similar logic to back Man City, just because I think, aside from Atletico, they've got the best defence in Europe this season. And I think across 2 legs, that's just so vital, isn't it? Especially in a season like this where players are, got such a big schedule, as we're always talking about. But players are going to be pretty tired going into the latter stages of this competition, especially once we get to the quarters and semis. And having a defence as strong as City's, having a defence as strong as Atleti's, is just so useful, isn't it? We saw obviously how well it worked against Liverpool, who are really at the top of their game going into that last 16 tie last season. So yeah, and I think this is the strongest we've seen City's defence in at least 2 years. So yeah, I think they've come into form at just the right time, and yeah, they have one of the easier opponents, I'd say, in Mönchengladbach in the round of 16, don't they? A team that they've come up against many times before in the UCL. So yeah, I see them comfortably getting through that tie, and then yeah, I think they're easily one of the 2 or 3 teams to beat.
Sorry, can I just add? I completely forgot about Manchester City, and I completely agree with everything that McCubs just said. I don't think
Atleti's a bad shout though. Like Atleti have they're on course for like a record-breaking La Liga season, aren't they? So like they are like you can't discount them.
Yeah, Man City might be on a great run, but there's been better teams under Pep that have come unstuck in the Champions League. So I don't think Man City's by far a guarantee. I went with Liverpool at the start of the season, which doesn't look very likely. But if they can get through 2 legs against Leipzig, they're in the quarterfinals. They start getting their players back. They have a fully fit side. Maybe some of their centre-back issues ease. I wouldn't rule out Liverpool, to be totally honest. But at the moment, I'm kind of going with Atletico Madrid too as well. I feel like it might just be their year. I just would not want to come up against them over 2 legs. Luis Suarez, I think, has scored from 25. He scored something like 16 goals from 25 shots on target. He's just on the hot streak of his life. They've got great forward options as well with Correa, João Felix, of course, who you still want a bit more from, I think, João Felix. But yeah, it's going to be a fascinating Champions League. Let us know who you guys think is going to be the surprise package and potential winners in the comments down below. And that's all we've got time for on Continental Club for this week. Sad times, another show done. Let us know what you guys thought of it in the comments section down below. And McCubs, what should they go and watch now?
Well, if you haven't checked it out, go and check out the final of the Football Pyramid that was out last weekend. It's not back for a little while, so go and get your kind of Football Pyramid fix there if you haven't done so already. Go and check out the Scout report that we put out this week, which is on 3 biggest mistakes of the season. We talk about Luis Suarez actually, so if you want a bit more on Atletico Madrid's season and Luis Suarez's season, like I said, yeah, he is just on a ridiculous hot streak at the moment, or like Dougie was saying, so go and check that out, and yeah, go and check out our explains as well.
Nice. Henry, anything from you? McCubs was pretty comprehensive there.
Yeah, I think Pat wrote about Bayer Leverkusen's their unsung talent factory. Please go check that out. 'Cause, you're always asking for Pat back on the channel. You can go listen to his words in motion there. Also got a Ronaldo versus Zlatan comparison, which you guys did in the Euro Roundup. And then I think Chris is releasing a 1-on-1 this week. That could be about Graham Potter, so you can hear him rant on that one for a bit. So yeah.
I think if he gets his way, it definitely will be about Graham Potter. But yeah, that'll be dropping tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Thank you so much for watching this show once again. We'll catch you next time. Bye.